Is Utah a cash buyers only market? In this video, that's what we're gonna be talking about today. From my boots on the ground experience, what I've been seeing, what I've been experiencing, what my clients have been personally going through, and what you actually need to deploy to get the offer the first try. What is the level of risk that you're actually assuming? When you buy real estate, it's always risky, right? Well, in today's market, it is the buyer that is assuming all the risk. And as much as you do not want to hear that, it is the truth. Normally, a seller is assuming all of the risk. And in today's market, it is the buyer. In this video, I'm gonna be covering the following: what it takes to actually get the house and the strategies that you may need to consider, and what you're actually up against in this competitive market. How do you get the house if you're an out-of-state buyer? How do you win an offer when you actually have another property to sell first? Because let's be honest, the days of a seller accepting a contingency on your home selling first are long gone. So I have a solution for you. How do you become a cash buyer even when you're not a cash buyer? How do you win the bid when you are cash against cash? So before we dive in, there's a few things that you definitely need to emotionally prepare for in this market, whether you're a buyer or you're a seller, to set expectations completely clear. You are gonna feel a lot of pressure. Many times you're gonna feel like you're getting taken advantage of. You're gonna be wondering if you're overpaying for this house, if you're offering way too much, if you're offering too little, if you should have done this, if you should have done that. You're gonna have regrets. Oh, we should have went with. But then when you do go with certain strategies, you're gonna go, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that because we got it, right? So it's both sides of the fence. It messes with your mind. You're gonna be wondering why the process wasn't nearly as smooth as you thought it would be. I am your advocate, and I am here to try to help you and break the ice and just be super candid with you and real with you. Like, this is what is happening in the market. This is what is happening to my buyers. This is what's happening to my sellers. This is what you can expect. For some people, it takes 3 offers to get their offer accepted. For others, it takes 7 or 8 tries. And honestly, I tell my buyers the same thing. It's just up to you what level of risk you are willing to assume. It all basically comes down to one question: how bad do you really want the property? Are you in love with your earnest money more than you are actually in love with the house? Now, I know what you're thinking. I really want to set expectations clear with you because in my market of Park City, we are 60% cash, and every offer that I have written this spring for people have been all cash offers. I have not written one offer that was with a mortgage. If you have to get a mortgage and you're writing offers with a mortgage, there is probably a 99.9% chance you are going to get beaten out by a cash buyer.
Next.
So if you really want to win the property, you need to be cash. So make sure you stick around because remember, I'm telling you how to be a cash buyer even when you don't have the cash.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So what does it actually take to get the house in this market, and what are the market conditions like? Well, from personal experience, I have written several offers. One offer was on a property in Deer Valley. It was over $1 million. This property was on the market for 2 days. It went live on a Friday afternoon. There were 2 open houses, and the seller was taking offers until Monday, and then they were going to review all the offers Tuesday and let everybody know who won. What ended up happening in this situation is that we were all cash. We had a really strong offer. My buyers offered over asking price, and we didn't have any contingencies. The only contingency we had was a short due diligence, which was under 5 days because they're out of state. They haven't even seen this property in person. They saw it through video, through FaceTime. Now, what ended up happening is this house ended up getting 7 offers on it, 5 of which were cash. How do you compete when you're cash against cash, right? 3 of the offers had escalation clauses, and the property ended up going for over $100,000 more in asking. So we ended up being on the low end of the spectrum because they really didn't they offered about $20,000 more. And this home ended up going for over $100K. So even though they offered over asking, the house went much farther over asking. I had another situation where I had another home, another cash buyer. This house was crazy. This house had 14 offers on it. Again, it was listed over the weekend. It had open houses. All offers needed to be submitted by Monday, and the seller reviewed everything on Tuesday. We, again, went in super strong. We were way over asking price, and we had a short due diligence period. We were all cash. and we got beat out by an offer that paid for the seller's closing costs, had non-refundable earnest money, waived their due diligence, gave the seller a free lease back for 2 months. How do you compete with that? They gave the entire ship away to these sellers. So let's talk about some of the strategies that can help you win now that you can kind of see you are really cash against cash in this market. So what strategies do you actually need to deploy to get the house? Well, first of all, I think you really need to look at what the seller really wants. We need to understand what the seller's needs are. Do they want a short close? Do they need a longer close? Do they need a lease back? Have they had a pre-home inspection done on the property? Do they have the seller's disclosures available? Give to us ahead of time so that we can look through those things and make a better offer. Now, let me tell you this. You're not gonna have a lot of time to look through these things, and you definitely don't have any negotiation power. So you're basically being handed, if you're lucky, you're being handed the seller's disclosures up front, the HOA documents up front, and maybe a pre-home inspection up front, so you actually know what you're getting into. Majority of the time, there's a lot of listing agents that don't do this, and so you're really not gonna find any of that stuff out until you're under contract. It depends on how long the house has been on the market. How many times has it fallen out of contract? And are there multiple buyers fighting for this house? Are you gonna be up against multiple buyers? Because if you are getting into a multiple offer bidding situation, you're gonna need to have a little bit more, deploy a little bit more risk. So that requires possibly paying over asking, putting in an escalation clause in there. Now remember, an escalation clause is basically triggered when another offer comes in higher than yours. You're saying, hey, if there's another offer that's higher than mine, I'm willing to go $30,000 over theirs, but not more than this. So it does have a cap on it, so it doesn't get completely out of control. You're gonna have to be all cash. You're not gonna get any homes in this market if you have a mortgage, especially in Park City. Everything is cash versus cash. We're very competitive, and you're starting to have to really think about what you're willing to do in order to get the house. You're gonna have to waive your appraisal contingency. I never recommend waiving a due diligence, but you're gonna have a really shortened or abbreviated due diligence period, which you're only gonna have 5 days or less probably. Fly out here if you're an out-of-state buyer, look at the house to make sure it's actually what you want, and do a home inspection. But remember, you're really not gonna have any negotiation power on asking for repairs. There's no way that you get an inspector in the house, look through and read all the CC&Rs, go through a home inspection report, and then ask a seller for repairs. It just will not happen in this market, unfortunately. Some people are comfortable waiving a due diligence contingency. Again, I told you what my level of concern is with that. You are gonna have to waive your financing contingency. And I've even written offers where my clients were getting a mortgage, but they were such strong buyers. They had such a strong pre-approval, and they could afford a lot, that we actually waived the financing condition, which was risky for them because they were still getting a mortgage, to make the offer stronger. Are you willing to pay for the seller's closing costs? Are you willing to not ask for repairs? Are you okay with shortened or abbreviated deadlines? What about non-refundable earnest money? Nicole, what does this mean? Well, I made a video on non-refundable earnest money that I'll link to up here, but non-refundable earnest money is basically saying, hey seller, I'm giving you free money as a signing bonus to accept my offer. Does it have to be your entire 3% of your earnest money that you put down? No, it can be if you want, but you could do $5,000, you could do $1,000, you could do $10,000. Sometimes non-refundable earnest money is just the ticket to get you what you need. However, it's really risky, especially if you haven't seen the property, you haven't had a chance to inspect it, and you haven't seen the seller's disclosures. And also, I probably wouldn't ask the seller to pay for a home warranty. And a lot of times people are crazy when I say that. Some sellers will be like, oh no, we'll do it. But in this market, I don't think you want to ask sellers for anything, especially if you're up against multiple offers. We're in the $1 million plus range, and we're getting 7 offers, 14 offers. Like, it's not just 2 or 3 offers you're up against. It's almost double digits. And in Salt Lake, it's about 50 times worse. There was a home down in Salt Lake that was listed for $800,000. It ended up selling for $200K more than asking to an all-cash buyer. It had 38 offers on this property. You have to ask yourself, how do you stand out in a sea of 38 people? You have to be the strongest buyer, you have to be really liquid, and you have to be flexible. So how do you get the house if you're an out-of-state buyer? Well, there are a few things that I need from you if you're you're an out-of-state buyer. Working with out-of-state buyers is my specialty. I work with a lot of people that relocate here, that buy vacation homes, that buy second homes here. So I'm very good about getting on a listing really quickly, running over there, videoing it for them, or setting up a FaceTime showing. The main thing in this market is I need you out here. And that's the hard part, because a lot of sellers might accept an offer where a buyer has actually seen the property over an offer that's even like amazing, but the seller hasn't seen it. And so there's still that chance that you could come out here, fly out here, and don't like it.
I hate it.
So the bottom line is, if you're an out-of-state buyer, I need you to be familiar with the area. So if you've already flown out here and you've looked at the areas and you know which area you want to land in, so when that one listing comes to market, we can jump on it. We also need to be prepared. So we need to have all the documents signed, which means you need to hire me.
Did you hire me?
There are about 4 documents kind of packaged together that we need to have signed that kind of describe my agency and my duties to you and your duties to me. It's called a buyer broker agreement. With that agreement, we have a couple of Berkshire Hathaway company related forms that are specific to our company that you have to sign, as well as a buyer due diligence checklist. And by law, these things have to be signed before I can even write you an offer. Also, you need to be ready to make an offer before the house even hits the market. So if we have all of these documents signed up, you've decided you want to work with me, you've decided you want to hire me, then I feel really good about going around to my network of amazing people and saying, I have a really incredible buyer. We are looking for this. If I don't have those documents signed, I'm really not going to go out of my way to try to find you off-market properties. When we have those documents signed and I know you are my client and you've officially hired me, I will go to work for you. I am happy to hunt and look for off-market listings and send you things so that we can be the first in the door. How do you buy a house when you have a house to sell first? Because no seller in this market is accepting a subject to sale contingency. That is like bottom of the pile.
Hey, have you lost your mind?
There are a few things that you can do. I actually had my lender on a couple of videos ago, so I will link to that video in here. But he has a really awesome program. If you have at least 20% down, he has a cash buyer who will actually buy the house for you. You don't have to sell your house yet. You can make an offer on this house and you get 6 months to sell the house that you actually need to sell. So this is amazing for 2 reasons. 1, you don't have to move twice, because normally I'd tell people you need to sell your house first, move into a rental, and then we can make an offer. So that requires you moving. And then once you get the house and the offer accepted, you have to move again. So you're moving twice, where this program is amazing. If you have the 20% down, they will be all cash for you. You can make an all cash offer, compete with all the other all cash offers. You don't have to worry about selling your house and getting a mortgage yet. When you close, then you can go down that road of refinancing, getting the mortgage, and you get 6 months to sell your property. They give you time. Again, go check out that video because he is much better at explaining what it is than I am. So how do you actually win the bid? You're cash against cash. This is super important. You've got to deploy one of the techniques that I talked about in the beginning of this video. You don't have to do all of them, especially if you're not comfortable with doing all of them, but you've got to look at what are you comfortable with doing? Are you comfortable with going over asking? Are you comfortable with putting an escalation clause in there? Comfortable with maybe non-refundable earnest money if you've seen a home inspection report or seller's disclosures, had the ability to go through HOA documents and some of the CCNRs, and you understand if this property is going to have assessments and what everything's going to cost, comfortable waiving contingencies. You really have to ask yourself, what are you comfortable with doing? And a lot of times when I first give these strategies out to my clients, they are not comfortable with any of them. Buyers do not want to assume the risk, and I don't blame you. 70% of buyers are unhappy at the end of the transactions in this market because they're overpaying for a property. You have to ask yourself, how bad do you really want the property? How financially strong are you? Remember, we can't do buyer love letters anymore. It comes down to who is the strongest financial buyer, who has the most flexibility, who is willing to give a seller what they want to make the deal happen. I think some exceptions to the rule of this are if you're looking at a property that's been on the house a lot longer than usual in this market. I mean, if this house has been on the market for a month, there's a chance you might actually have some negotiation power. Market is cash versus cash. That might come off really cut and dry and rough, but I'm telling you guys, I'm giving you strategies of how to be a cash buyer when you can't be one. Everything that I said, really think about it. What are you willing to do to get the house? Especially for an out-of-state buyer, you're not here and you're unfamiliar with the market and you're like, what do you mean I have to be cash? This market, gotta be cash. Once you close, finance. If you really want to have a mortgage on the property, just being cash up front, refinancing it, and doing your thing later. You are still not convinced and you don't believe me what it actually takes to buy a house in this market, how competitive the city real estate market really is. Make sure you go check out the video next for more tips.